Hi everybody, I'm Jack and this is Raw Tropical Living. Thanks for joining me today. Nice quiet Saturday here on the mountain, back from the fruit market. Had a friend to go with me this morning. Got my vegan guest here at the house, which is really cool. Sorry I didn't get a video out to you yesterday. I was a bit under the weather. I figured out later in the day I was just way dehydrated, so I pretty much just tanked the day and stayed in bed, relaxed, drank water, and ate bananas. And I'm back to 100%, I guess, today. But anyhow, just thought we'd have one of our little weekend chats. And this little weekend chat comes from the train of thought, not the train of thought, because that's not what you're not trying to think during meditation, but this is kind of like the theme or kind of what I've worked on a bit recently in meditation. Now, as I'm talking about this though, finding peace and letting go. And I just mentioned meditation. You don't necessarily, I'm just kind of talking some of my thoughts and some things I'm using in everyday life now that might work for other people. But don't get tripped up on the word meditation. I know meditation is one of those words that just like some people have connotations about it. It freaks them out or they're not interested in meditation. And you don't necessarily have to meditate to use some of these techniques. As I've talked about in videos a number of times before, I really focus on mindfulness a lot about being in the moment. Anytime I'm thinking, I'm getting too distracted or thinking too far ahead, or I'm just not really grounded where I am, I'm always trying to bring myself back to the moment. And the breath is one of the easiest ways to do that. When meditating, I'm always focusing on the breath. And the first thing you try to do is when thoughts come up or when distractions come up, you don't give yourself a hard time, you don't beat yourself up, you don't grasp onto those thoughts or whatever. You just bring it back to the breath, and that breath is the anchor. You're always bringing it back to the breath. You bring it back to the breath. Okay, that's during meditation when you're trying to like I say, not let the distracting thoughts. It's kind of like this. You're not trying to block thought out. What you're trying to do is just like acknowledge that thought, observe that thought, and then just let it pass on. In meditation, sometimes the visualization is like imagine like maybe, or for me, it's like there's a river floating by in front of you. Thoughts come, they go, you see them, and you just let them go and you let them pass on by. Now, the way that, like I say, I'm using this in everyday life more and more, which I didn't do before. By the way, I've kind of retooled my whole meditation practice in the last month or so. I've always had a hard time meditating. I talk more about meditating than I do. I read a lot about it. I'll meditate for a while and then I get tripped up and I get off. So I've kind of been retooling my meditation practice. And as I'm doing this and I'm concentrating all the time on mindfulness, I'm really using these techniques more on a daily basis to just constantly bring me back into the presence. So I thought today I'd talk about that a little bit in the video from the aspect of whether you do it or not, just breathing and how you can, help yourself in a lot of situations with finding peace or with letting things go. Letting anger go, letting go of emotions a lot of times. A lot of times if an emotion pops up, you just, instead of grasping onto that emotion, focusing on that emotion, chewing up that emotion and letting it, just like build and get you worked up even more, you don't ignore it, you don't suppress it. You acknowledge that, oh, I'm feeling anger or whatever, but then you focus on that breath. Inhale, exhale, you follow the cycle of your breath and you just acknowledge that. You're the observer and then you let that go, letting all thoughts go. It's amazing. You would be surprised at just I know how simple that sounds, and probably a lot of people are easier said than done, but when you get it in your head like that and when you focus on it like that, it's really easy to let go of all these negative feelings, emotions, what have you, problems you have with other people. That's a good way to maybe, even if you end up and it doesn't work 100%, here's a good one. Next time you have maybe a negative emotion towards another person, you're angry, you're about to respond in an angry way, you're about to write something angry, especially if you're about to write something angry, because you actually do have a little time to think about things. Sometimes it's harder face to face, but the next time you're angry or you're having that sort of negative emotion towards somebody or towards a thing, towards whatever, just stop for a minute. Be aware of your breath. You don't have to, and this isn't about focusing, this isn't about trying to breathe a certain way. You're just aware. You're just observe your breath. Observe the in, observe the out, and then observe, and then just mentally to yourself, just picture that, letting it go, letting that emotion of anger go, letting that emotion, whatever negative emotion, it could be a negative emotion towards another person, it could be a self-negative emotion. If you're having, if you're having a bad dialogue with yourself, I'm trying to think of the word, not self-hate necessarily, but people say unkind things to themselves. They have negative thoughts about themselves. When you find those are just as bad, probably worse than negative thoughts towards other people, because the way we feel about ourselves will somehow reflect on how we deal with other people to a large extent. So the same thing, you're having these feelings of low self-esteem, no worth in your life, whatever negative about you, do the same thing. Take a deep breath. Realize you're seeing that, whatever works for you, something that's just passing by. Imagine that feeling or that emotion floating down the river. And, just like observe your breath, observe the in and the out a few times, and then just mentally picture letting that go, like it's going away, or you get sometimes a balloon floating away, whatever visualization you need. But you take hold of that breath, and you can probably diffuse your emotions in a lot of those situations. You can diffuse a lot of heated situations like that. The part about bringing peace bringing peace into your life. You can use this technique or just mental process or whatever you want to call it, in lots of different situations. So maybe it's fear, maybe it's not necessarily with other persons or towards yourself. Maybe you have something that pops up and it gives you a feeling of deep fear, deep anxiety. Instead of trying to suppress that, cover it up, not think about it, acknowledge it. No right or wrong. That's another thing about when you observe these thoughts or when you observe these emotions and they're passing on by, don't put a label on them. Don't think of them as a good emotion or a bad emotion, positive, negative. Observe with no judgment whatsoever. And these little techniques, as simple as they may sound, they're very, very powerful. Very powerful. I was telling my guest last night, and this isn't so much about, bringing peace, but it is about finding peace, because it always brings me peace. I was telling her this practice now is really starting to work in the day-to-day life. I focus more. I'm in the now more. And that's what it's really all about. Whether, no matter what you're doing, meditation, a spiritual practice, or just pragmatic reality, you need to be in the moment. We live in the moment. We don't live in the future. We can't go back and live in the past. The past is just memories. The future may never make it here. Now is all we really have. So what I was telling her is I'm using my brain. Obviously, we have all these devices and we can take photos all the time, but I use my brain as this mental camera where I am right now, the place in life where I am right now, like with the doggy here. I was telling her, I'm not going to be able to take doggy with me. It's just not going to work out. She's going to be okay. She's got a home. But so sometimes when I'm here on the property, I'm getting too busy and I'm working and I'm writing and I'm making videos and I'm researching this and I'm working on this e-commerce store and working on the clothing and whatever. I have to just say, stop. I turn everything off. I walk outside and I sit on the porch with dog and I just interact with her and I look at her face and I really try to take a picture of this moment in time. I really try to take a picture of this time frame, to remember how I felt about her, remember the times I spent with her, remember what we did, remember what we looked at. I look at this view. I walk this property all the time and just stop. They say stop and smell the roses. Well, we don't have roses here, but I stop. I do literally stop. I do this all the time in my day-to-day life now. And it's phenomenal. You observe so much more and your life becomes a lot more richer like that. So that's kind of going in a little bit different direction towards the finding peace and letting things go, but it all kind of works together in this control, and all of that control, which is not control, which is actually letting go. It's not control, that's a bad word, I shouldn't have even used that word, but it's just a way, it's a tool to always bring yourself back, back to the present, to take yourself out of a mentally negative situation, to take yourself out of a negative situation with another person, with yourself, with your inner dialogue, with whatever. But it's a good little practice. Like I say, this video isn't too much. It's kind of fluff today, another rambling one, but that's why I like to do these little ones on the weekend. They're not about the food, and I don't know how many people will watch them, but they do have a little bit of value. And I like to try to always on my Saturday one, see if I can't go off the, off the usual topic and try to throw something out there of value. So I don't know, I'll keep doing them on the weekends and hopefully people enjoy them. But anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up. Hope you'll hit that subscribe button and come back for more. Usually I'm not so all over the place with them. And when you hit the subscribe button, click on the little bell and click send notifications so you'll stay subscribed. And I hope you are having a lovely weekend. Love you guys. Peace.